Now, you talked about the New York Times having an alternative base after the national security law came in 2020. It's not just the fact that you move out, but it's also the symbolism of scaling down. Any regrets about leaving Hong Kong, or not leaving completely, but reducing that presence?
Yeah, I wish we could still rely on this place, which is a fabulous place to be based as a journalist. You know, I wish we could have continued to build up our staff here. I mean, we have a terrific operation in Seoul, and we've continued to keep a bunch of our journalists, and also our international print operation is still based in Hong Kong, so we have a significant ongoing presence here. But it did seem prudent for us to also have another major base in Asia, given the uncertainties around the legal protections for journalists, the possibility, you know, that the Hong Kong authorities were going to see themselves as sort of enforcing some kind of code about what you can say about China, but also some of the slowing down and the restrictions on visas and access, which are really important for us to be able to get people in and out as we need. So all those considerations persuaded us that we wanted to have another base here as well, and not put all of our chips in that environment in the Hong Kong basket. And I think that makes real sense for us, but I wish it were otherwise.
And your reporters who are here, what do they tell you about the challenges they face in just doing the work, in getting sources to talk to them, in phrasing the question in a way that someone is not going to get offended?
Yeah, I think, as you know well, I think as many people here know well, there is, you know, something of a real chilling effect, even in Hong Kong, even on, you know, subjects that once were seen as completely unrestricted, you know, the economy, the movement of people, you know, kind of a range of local issues, anything that could be interpreted as remotely sensitive, people have become more cautious. It's, you know, and it takes more effort to do every story we want to do. It slows down the process. You know, so I'm sure you've experienced something similar. I hope that it sort of settles down. I also I hope the Hong Kong authorities realize that the value in this place is so caught up with the sort of the dynamism and the debate that comes from having a more open media culture. You know, I think it will, if it were to loosen up a bit, it will also help, you know, raise the profile of Hong Kong again in the international media. It will bring more people back to Hong Kong. It's in Hong Kong's interest. It's certainly in the interest of global readership to understand the place better and to, you know, get back to that genuine, more open environment.
Back to the days where you could just walk up to someone with a microphone and they would participate in an interview.
As you know well from many years of sticking out that microphone, yeah.
And you spoke in your speech about the demonization of journalism, and I think that's what a lot of people feel here, that asking a question has somehow become dangerous and a bad thing to do. But do you think that there's also a growing mistrust, particularly of Western media in Asia, not just in Hong Kong, but in Asia generally? And can we do something about it?
There's a distrust of Western media in the United States. I mean, you know, it's where are we not distrusted at the moment? You know, it is a sad reality of the you know, of the time that we're in, that there's a level of animosity about even what quality media do. You know, we get swept up in sort of the political moments of the time and demonized, you know, in a way that includes, unfortunately, political leadership participates in that, and it sort of passes down into society. And I don't think there's really any place in the world right now that's completely neutral about the role of the media. I do think that when readers engage with us, and we see this often, you know, we have a large readership around the world, even in the place where reporters are facing those obstacles and when the media is demonized. But when you look at the engagement that we get and the comments that we get, there are so many people out there who still really appreciate the hard work of on-the-ground reporting, appreciate being confronted with a range of ideas and views. They are themselves working through these issues. It sort of gives me confidence, like actually when you're feeling a little bit down and frustrated by the environment that we're in, go to some of the we open up a lot of stories for comments and just see some. These are actual readers. It's not like
They're not bots.
It's not bots. It's not X. It's not, you know. These are like real people who have to register with their real names, and they're curated, and you get like a real sense on global stories, on domestic stories, of there is still a real audience out there for good quality journalism. People appreciate it, and it gives me hope in those moments.
There's a question that was submitted online in advance. It's really all about China coverage. The questioner writes that they grew up in mainland China and only heard about Tiananmen Square from a history teacher who went outside the box, outside the textbooks. He or she asks, as it's getting more challenging to report on news in mainland China with fewer journalists allowed, what's your view on the future of news coverage in China?
Wow, I mean, you know, I think everything that we're talking about with respect to, you know, some of the pressures in Hong Kong, you know, are of course significantly more restrictive across the border. They're, you know, in the years that I was in China, many of the years in the 90s and the early 2000s, there still appeared to be, the media was very tightly controlled, but there were lots of signs that China understood the role that having a, you know, a more freewheeling media with, you know, a variety of interests. They were allowing some privately funded startups. There were collaborations between domestic and international media. There were tons of magazines that were forming, you know, to cover all kinds of arts and culture. There was a flowering even in the mainland in those years, and I had a real hope and expectation that that would continue. I unfortunately don't think it has. I mean, I think there's been a reversion to, you know, state control over all kinds of news media that is significantly tighter than it was at that time. The diversity that you saw in some of kind of the academic work as well in the universities and textbooks that had started to show a little bit more experimentation and openness has also been ratcheted back. So I think we're in, you know, a period of tightness in China for sure. I do think, you know, there are some little, you know, glimmers of hope there as well, as they're eager to kind of get more foreign investment back. Some signs that they want to stabilize relationship with the United States and not kind of contribute to this decoupling or this polarization. But there's slight signs at the moment, and you know, also we're very heavily restricted in the number of correspondents that we can get in. We're down to 2 in mainland China. At the peak, we were more than 10, and I would have far more than that if I possibly could. But right now, that's not the environment we're working in.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to our audience. So if anybody would like to ask a question, just please raise your hand and we will get you a microphone. I always love the beginning of this because there's a room full of journalists and nobody has a question. Nobody wants to go first. Someone wants to ask a question back there. Just tell us where you're from as well, please.
Hi, Kahn. Eric Wisher, AFP. Thanks, Joe, for sharing your thoughts on the situation in Hong Kong. I would like to ask you, what's the Times's and your strategy regarding artificial intelligence, and in particular the use of generative AI? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. We're very actively exploring the ways various AI tools, can enhance the journalistic process. We're already using, some forms of AI in certain kinds of sort of data-oriented and investigative reporting, in analyzing, helping us to analyze large number of images, satellite data, in some of the work that we've done related to the Israel-Gaza conflict, related to Russia's evasion of sanctions in shipping around the world, in numerous other projects. We're using, some enhanced AI tools to help with text-to-speech, creating audio versions of articles, which are now we're producing at scale, experimenting more with the ways improvements in AI can help with translation as well. There isn't, I don't think that we have a kind of theory of the case yet or on Gen AI as opposed to, kind of AI applications. Looking at it really closely and studying, the opportunities there. The one, guiding principle that we have, though, is that we are not interested in, using AI to replace the original reporting, the on-the-ground reporting, or the human judgment that goes into our journalism. So from everything from the ideation and assigning phase all the way to the final product that we produce, we want, our human beings as journalists to be involved and in control and responsible for every stage of that, even as we find ways to use AI as sort of an enhancement to the work that people are doing. So the newsroom perspective, we're not pessimistic about AI. Actually, it's offering us a bunch of opportunities, but we don't see it as a replacement for the work that journalists do.
Okay, another question? Anybody at the back?
There's one on the
there's one
right
over there, okay.
back there. It's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe. Ruben here, also from AFP. I was just wondering, over your years in the business, slightly intangible question, but how do you feel your kind of candidates, the people coming into journalism, have changed? And is it still something, do you still feel there is the same enthusiasm for it? Because for many good reasons that some have already been alluded to this evening, it feels like why would anyone do this nowadays?
Right.
How does it feel from your standpoint?
Well, there's kind of the macro question and then our own experience. I think, on a general level, you're undoubtedly right. The challenges of journalism, particularly in places where it's tightly restricted, maybe dissuading people from coming into the field, particularly if they think they're going to get in some kind of political trouble. I mean, it's impossible to deny that that's really discouraging for a new generation that might otherwise have pursued a career in journalism. Our own situation in the United States and around the world is there's still an enormous, enthusiasm. We have a fellowship program that we open up to recent college graduates that recruits, around 50 people a year for, really a year-long, opportunities to work very closely on all kinds of coverage desks around the newsroom. And it's amazingly oversubscribed. I mean, I think we had 9,000 applicants for those 50 slots recently, so there's still huge interest in having that kind of core experience, and that's very encouraging. And that includes, people covering metro issues in New York City, but it also includes people who want to, learn, forensic video techniques, and people who are designers and coders. So there's a lot of opportunities and skill sets that we're seeking, and a lot of people who want to gain that experience. So I still think that despite some of those headwinds, we're seeing, real interest in a new generation in joining and learning journalistic skills, which is encouraging.
That is great. Yes. Last question here. Oh, okay. We'll squeeze into the mic's coming to you.
Hi, Joe. Julia Klein from Bloomberg Media. Covering Donald Trump's first presidency was talked about as being quite uncharted territory for a lot of news organisations due to his influence to control the news cycle. Is there any learnings from his first presidency that you would take into covering him in a second?
Yeah, something we think about quite a bit. I mean, we have a kind of series of stories that's running about Trump in 2025, were he to be reelected as as president. And I think all of our reporting suggests that a second term would be significantly more disruptive in terms of U.S. norms and politics than that first term would be, in part because Trump himself and the people around him already have the experience of what they consider to be the obstacles that they ran into in implementing his agenda. He did not come in the first term in an especially kind of organized or experienced way with a concrete set of policy objectives and sort of like lots of experience navigating Congress and the courts to get them done. It was all done a little bit on the fly. It was pretty clear that he didn't expect to win, and he suddenly was equipped with the powers of the presidency, and it took him, much of his term to figure out how to operate the levers. But they're making very, very clear now that they would not be wasting time on implementing their agenda, which includes, a very draconian shift in U.S. immigration policy, the deportation of, potentially even millions of people who are living in the United States awaiting asylum, but technically not there legally, a much more isolationist approach to America's commitments abroad, and skepticism about its alliances and the burden that puts, a passion for tariffs, very vocal idea that the United States can raise a ton of revenue by slapping tariffs on imports, and it will be free. Of course, it's not free, it's a form of a tax, but that's part of the debate. And then, a very skeptical approach to the civil service, and I might remake some of the protections for civil servants, a radical new approach to the Department of Justice, which he promises will work directly for him in the future and not have an independent role in the American judicial system. So those are just some of the things. They've been very clear on that agenda, and we've been covering that very frontally and making sure that readers and voters in the United States have that information very clearly presented before them when they make this choice.
Okay, I think there was someone right at the back who had a question. This will be the last one. Oh, it's Ying. Ying, we'll bring you a mic. Don't worry.
Thank you. Actually, this is a follow-up question on covering the election in the United States. So, what is your strategy in covering Mr. Donald Trump? What have you learned in your previous coverage? And how would you do it differently this round? So can you share some of your thoughts?
You know, like any story, it's a constant learning process. We didn't know what to expect in 2015 when he first indicated that he was going to run. We didn't know what to expect, you know, in the campaign. We certainly didn't know what to expect from his presidency. We learned throughout that. You know, one of the things for sure is you didn't quite know in 2015 and 2016 whether the campaign was mostly rhetoric or whether, you know, you were going to see a different, more pragmatic or more typical leader emerge after he won election. I think there was a debate about that. I don't think there's a debate about that now. I mean, he's a very clearly understood personality and figure. And nobody is expecting that he would somehow emerge as a different kind of leader were he to be elected. So, you know, some of the uncertainty has just gone away with the passage of time and the understanding of what kind of figure he is. You know, I be a little bit boastful. I mean, we have the best team by far covering Donald Trump in the news media industry. There literally is just not a better team. I mean, you know, we have, you know, Maggie Haberman, Jonathan Swan, you know, 4 or 5 other people, Peter Baker in the White House who covered him in the first term. I mean, we've got an A team that understands him, the people around him, you know, the implications of his first term, and, you know, if he were to win election on November 5th, or however long it takes to resolve the disputes, which are almost inevitable in this election, you know, we will fasten our seatbelts and have a job to do. You know, it'll be an enormous story to cover, and we've got the team in place to do it, a very experienced team. So yes, they've all learned from the past, and they're ready for the possibility that we'll have another round.
Yeah. Get ready for 4 more years of alternative facts. So on that note, Joe, thank you so much for
Welcome. Thank
coming
you, Karen.
tonight and for being with us and for sharing your thoughts. We really appreciate it.
Nice to join you.